Welcome to Shattered Trust Stories. The air in the room felt thicker than usual. It wasn't the kind of tension you could easily pinpoint, but it was there, lingering in the background, making everything feel off. I had been married to Sarah for 5 years, and on the surface, things seemed fine. But something had been nagging at me for months, something I couldn't ignore anymore. It started small, almost imperceptible. Late nights at work, moments of disconnection, a few too many phone calls that she quickly brushed off. But I wasn't the kind of person to jump to conclusions. After all, Sarah had always been loving and supportive. I trusted her, and I never questioned her loyalty. But trust is a funny thing. It's fragile. It can be built up over years and shattered in seconds. One night, after I noticed her acting a bit too distant for comfort, I found myself staring at her phone, something I had never done before. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but curiosity gnawed at me. I knew her password, we had nothing to hide, right? But what if there was something there? I unlocked the phone and scrolled through her messages. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. There were some work-related texts, casual chats with friends, but then I saw it. A name. It wasn't someone I recognized. "Hey, how's your day going?" the message read. Nothing alarming on its own, but something about it made my stomach twist. I scrolled back through the conversation history. A few more messages. And then, an image. I froze. It wasn't explicit, but it was intimate, something I couldn't shake off. The sender's name was Jake. It wasn't the first time I had heard that name. Sarah had mentioned him a few months ago, saying he was an old friend from college. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew there was more to this story than what I was seeing. The moment was too big for me to just ignore. So, I did something I never thought I would. I messaged the number pretending to be Jake. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed answers. I needed to know if my gut was wrong or if something deeper was going on. "Hey, it's Jake. Just wanted to check in on you." I pressed send and waited. I felt a little sick to my stomach, but it was the only way to get the truth, right? The response came quickly. It was almost as if he had been waiting for it. "Hey, love, everything's great. Miss you, just got home, and I can't stop thinking about our last night together." My heart dropped as I sat there, frozen, staring at the words on the screen. This wasn't just a friendly chat. It was something more, something intimate, something I couldn't ignore. That's when I realized, Sarah wasn't just distant lately. She was hiding something, and I had been too blind to see it. I stared at the phone for a long time, processing the shock that was still settling in. But something inside me clicked. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I couldn't just accept the betrayal without doing something about it. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to call her out and demand the truth. But another part of me, one that was far more calculated, knew that rushing into it would only give her the chance to cover up. So, I decided to wait. I wanted her to think I didn't know anything. I wanted her to let her guard down, so I could find out just how deep this went. The days that followed were filled with tension. Sarah didn't act any differently, but I could feel her distance growing. I couldn't shake the thought that she knew I was onto her, but I kept my cool. I didn't let on. I played the role of the oblivious husband, even though I felt like everything was falling apart inside. Then came the day I decided I had enough information. I had to know for sure. I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. So, I made my move. I had a plan in place. I would confront her, but not in the way she'd expect. I knew it was time to hit her where it would hurt the most. But I didn't want just any answer. I wanted the truth. I picked up my phone, taking a deep breath. I sent one last message to Jake. "Sarah's been acting weird lately. I'm starting to get suspicious. What's really going on with you two?" The response came almost immediately. "She's been lying to you. We've been seeing each other for months. And she's been telling me that she doesn't love you anymore." I felt the blood rush to my head. My hands were shaking, but I didn't stop. The truth was right there, and I needed to hear it. I didn't reply. Instead, I put the phone down and stared at the wall. This wasn't the way I wanted to find out. This wasn't how I imagined the end of my marriage. But the words I had just read were undeniable. I had trusted her. And now, in the most painful way, I realized that trust had been shattered. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting back at her. But in that moment, I knew I had to make a decision. It was time to take control of my own life. Just 1 week later, everything changed. Sarah had no idea what was coming. She thought she had me cornered, controlled by the money, by the shared life we had built. But the truth was, she had underestimated me. In a quiet, calm move, I took everything from her. The house, the cars, the savings, everything we had worked for together. But it wasn't out of spite. It wasn't because I wanted revenge. It was because I realized I deserved better. I had been betrayed, but I wouldn't let it define me. I was going to move forward, and Sarah would be the one left behind, without the power, without the control, and that, my friends, is where things truly get interesting. Because sometimes, taking back control of your life means making the hardest decisions of all. But the question is, what happens next? What did Sarah do when she found out? Well, you'll have to stay tuned, because the ending will shock you. The silence in the house was almost deafening. After Sarah left, the air felt different, lighter, but also heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had time to just breathe, to sit and reflect without feeling like I was drowning in work or family obligations. But now, with Sarah gone, I had space to think. That I spent the next few days holed up in the house, feeling the echoes of my past life like ghosts in the walls. The furniture, the pictures on the walls, the things we had collected together, they all felt like they were from someone else's life, not mine. I could almost hear Sarah's laughter in the distance, but it wasn't comforting. It was a reminder of everything I had lost, but as painful as it was, I knew I needed to go through this process. I had to face the reality of the situation. I wasn't just grieving the loss of a marriage, I was grieving the loss of my trust, my identity in that relationship, and the life I had envisioned for myself. I started packing up the things that reminded me of her. It was cathartic, in a strange way. Each object I put into boxes felt like another step toward closing that chapter of my life. A framed picture from our honeymoon. Our favorite coffee mugs. A book we had read together on our first vacation. It was all going. But what I realized as I packed wasn't just the physical emptiness of the house, it was the emotional emptiness I had been living in for so long. I had been suffocating in that marriage, and I hadn't even known it until now. I had been so focused on trying to hold on to something that was no longer there, something that was fading with every lie, every half-hearted apology. I had let myself become lost in her needs, in her emotional baggage, without ever taking the time to check if I was still me. That's when I decided to make a change. No more looking back, no more dwelling on the past. If I wanted to heal, I had to start taking care of myself. I had to reconnect with who I was before the marriage, before Sarah, before the years of compromising myself for someone else's happiness. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but slowly, I began to reclaim the pieces of myself that had been buried. I started doing things I enjoyed again, things I had long forgotten. I spent time with friends I hadn't seen in years. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned, like painting, something I had once loved but set aside to focus on the relationship. I also reconnected with my work, but this time, I did it for myself, not for anyone else's approval. One night, about a week after Sarah left, I decided to treat myself to dinner at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try. I sat at a table for one, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I had been so consumed with what Sarah thought of me, with trying to hold the marriage together, that I had forgotten what it felt like to just enjoy my own company. And it felt good. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt optimistic. The weight of the past was lifting, and I was beginning to see the light again. I wasn't just healing from the betrayal. I was healing from the version of myself I had become in that marriage. A few weeks later, I received a message from Sarah. I wasn't sure what to expect. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, but the other part of me wondered if she was reaching out to apologize, if maybe, just maybe, she had finally come to terms with what she had done. That I hesitated before opening the message. But when I did, my heart sank. "I miss you," it read. "I've been thinking about everything. Can we talk? I'm sorry." There it was, the familiar pattern. The apology. The regret. But this time, I didn't feel the familiar tug of guilt. This time, I didn't feel the need to rush to her defense or to offer forgiveness because I realized something profound. I didn't owe her any more of my energy. I had already given her so much, and I had nothing left to give. I didn't respond to the message immediately. I thought about it for a day, but in the end, I made my decision. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to reopen old wounds, especially not for someone who had betrayed me so completely. The person she had become, the person she was choosing to be, wasn't someone I could share my life with anymore. I wrote back a simple reply: "I've moved on. I hope you find what you're looking for. Goodbye." The moment I sent it, I felt a strange sense of finality. It wasn't bitterness, it wasn't anger, it was just the quiet acceptance that I had made the right choice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, I got back into the rhythm of my life. I wasn't rushing to fill the emptiness with anything or anyone. I had learned to appreciate the stillness, the silence. It was my time to rebuild, to rediscover who I was, and to focus on what truly mattered to me. I spent more time with family, who had supported me through all of this, and I began to understand the importance of having people in your life who truly care about you. Not people who are there for what they can get, but people who will stand by you, no matter what. One night, as I sat on the balcony of my apartment, looking out over the city, I realized how far I had come. It wasn't just about surviving the betrayal. It was about finding strength in myself again. I wasn't the man who had been broken by Sarah's lies. I wasn't the man who had been willing to accept anything just to keep the peace. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone who understood that I deserved better. And though the journey wasn't easy, I was ready for whatever came next. Because, in the end, life had a funny way of showing you that even when you think you've lost everything, you're often just about to find yourself. As I sat there, looking out at the city lights, I thought I had it all figured out. I had let go of the past. I had healed, reclaimed my life, and learned what truly mattered. But just as I was starting to feel like I could finally breathe again, something unexpected happened. The phone buzzed on the table beside me. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then picked it up, already bracing myself for what it might be. Maybe it was Sarah again. Maybe it was someone else from my past trying to re-enter my life. I answered with a steady, calm voice. "Hello?" The voice on the other end of the line was unfamiliar, but it carried a sense of urgency. "Is this name?" the voice asked, a faint tremble of uncertainty in it. "Yes, who is this?" I replied, a cold chill creeping up my spine. "I think you need to know something," the voice continued, its tone serious now. "Something you've been kept in the dark about, something about Sarah." My heart skipped a beat. I felt a knot form in my stomach as I waited for the next words. "I don't know if you're ready for this, but you should hear it. Sarah, she's been hiding something from you. And it's not just about the affair." I froze. A wave of unease washed over me as I tried to make sense of the words. What could it be? What was it that I didn't know? The voice went on, low and steady. "You were never supposed to find out, but it's time you did." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heartbeat. "What are you talking about?" The voice paused for a moment, as if deciding whether to continue. Finally, it spoke again. "Trust me, you don't know her like you think you do." Before I could respond, the line went dead. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. What did that call mean? What had Sarah been hiding all this time? I thought I knew everything. But what if there was something huge, that I still didn't know, and just as I started to gather my thoughts, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a text message. The message read, "We need to talk. Meet me tonight." The sender's name was simply, unknown.